Hello. Hi. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Just trying to get through this week. This is the holiday weekend, so I know we're
Yes.
gonna experience some rain, but I'm just glad that we'll still be having that extra day if you have an extra day.
Mhm.
Yeah, because Lord knows.
Definitely love having those extra days during the week.
Yes.
Yes.
And then when you have them, like, do you always like plan something in advance? Do you always like, or do you just take your day, like, I'm just gonna have my day?
Normally, I may plan things in advance, but then depending on how the day goes, I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna scratch this off and just listen to how my body feels.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
I completely understand that. Yes, yes. That is so awesome. I know we are excited about this conversation.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yes.
So welcome to the check-in. We are
Welcome.
excited to have this conversation about mental wellness, about stress, how we manage stress, how we deal with stress, things that cause us stress. This conversation is so important. Some of the things that I know we talk about here will be things that people resonate with, things that people can identify with on a day-to-day basis. And I know for me personally, listen, stress is a big deal. So,
Yes, it is.
yeah, so how do you feel like, stress kind of shows up, I guess, in your life?
Yeah, and since this is Mental Health Awareness Month, we definitely wanted to talk about a topic that many people can resonate with. So stress can come in so many different forms. Like it can come with the day, it can come with just how you're feeling throughout. Like you're feeling really like tense. That's how I know that I'm starting to get stressed. I'm starting to feel really tense, and I'm like, ooh. And sometimes I don't even notice it that like I'm feeling that way. So I just have to like sit down if I notice I'm starting to feel really tense and start getting like migraines and headaches.
Yeah, like stress can cause a lot of those physical kinds of symptoms. Like we see stress, but we don't always understand it to be just an emotional thing. We feel it in our body. And so wherever, like you said, like you might get headaches, you might feel that tension. I'm the same way. When I'm stressed, I'm getting a migraine. Okay, I'm getting a migraine. I'm feeling it in my body. I feel that anxiety and that weight and that heaviness, and it can cause like long-term issues. So tapping in, if you don't know what stress is actually the body and brain's natural physical and emotional reaction to a challenge, demand, or a perceived threat. So stress is how we respond, not just our body, but our minds, to the things that life throws at us. So as we are delving into, feel free to chime in the chat. We would love to answer some of your questions or read some of your comments. But we're going to be talking a little bit about what stress looks like. So when we talk about stress, what are some things that might trigger stress for you?
Things that may trigger stress for me, like I was mentioning, like I may start to feel it like in my body. Like my shoulders may start to get tense, my neck starts to hurt. Like I become really sensitive to sound around me, excuse me. So those are some of the triggers that I've been able to become aware that I'm starting to feel stress. But before, like this is like maybe a few years ago, I wouldn't know what those feelings were and I'll just keep working. I wouldn't take a break if I'm at work or at home doing something. I'll just work and push right through it, because it was like, maybe I just need to grab something to eat, maybe I need to drink some water, but I wouldn't know exactly what that was. But like, yeah, it's definitely things that trigger us to tell us, it's communicating something with our body.
Yeah, like I really like that you pinpointed, because I think that this is a big thing for a lot of people. Like sometimes we try to power through. We experience the symptoms, we experience the physical symptoms, the emotional symptoms, we feel that burnout, we feel that stress, but we try to power through that, those responses that our body is giving, and those are like red flags. Like those are like those alarms that our body experiences and tell us to slow down, tell us to, we're in trouble, that we need to take heed to what our body is saying. But I can definitely attest to that as well. Like some of the triggers that I know that I experience is I kind of like shut down a little bit. I'm the kind of person that if I'm too stressed, I need to decompress, turn off all the lights, like no TV, no music, no anything. I just need to sit. And I don't need to sit with a bunch of my thoughts, I just need to sit. I think that that's something that like helps me know that I can power through the moment. But in times where I don't feel like I can do that, like it's hard, you know, when you're at work and you're stressed out, like I can't just turn off the lights in the office.
Right.
You know, you have to find a way to get to a place where you can cope in the space with your stress. Even if you're feeling the physical symptoms of it, or you're feeling the emotional symptoms of it. And unfortunately, that's the case for a lot of people in America. One thing we find is that 33% of people experience extreme stress on a regular basis here in America. We see that 40 million people, adults in the U.S., are affected by anxiety disorders, which is the most common mental illness. And so as we are delving into what that looks like, we know that in understanding that people who are experiencing chronic stress, everyday stress, if they're experiencing anxiety, you're not alone. You know, you're not by yourself. There's many people that are experiencing this same condition, the same kind of disorder with you, and there's ways to combat it. So I love that this conversation will cover not just the ways that we feel it, but the ways that we cope and the ways that we manage stress.
Right, and I love the fact that you shared ways that you can cope with stress and being aware in your body when it's telling you to, you know, that it's time to slow down and take a break. Even in the middle of our day, it may be hard to do when you're at work, but there's definitely moments that we can incorporate that, even if it's like 5 minutes, right? Because at a previous job I had, I never even took a lunch break. I didn't have a lunch break. I just kept working through my 8 hours, 9 hours, and I never took, you know, a break. So I really felt it when I got, you know, a lot older. I'm like, this is not healthy, you know. So I love the fact that you read over the statistics also, because oftentimes we do feel like we are alone. We're experiencing those when we have those stressful moments, like we feel like we're by ourselves and nobody can relate to us. But having this topic tonight, I love the fact that we're talking about our personal experiences, but also sharing some information and resources for you to discuss also. So, yeah.
Awesome. So when we think about what it looks like to be supported while you're feeling stressed, like what does that look like for you?
I can use a professional way and then a personal way. So my previous job, there was a lack of support, you know, a lack of support. I would talk to my previous supervisor and they would pretty much just say things like, you'll be all right, just handle it, deal with it, you'll be okay, you know, and not really like hearing my concerns that I had. So that caused even more stress. And the stress that I had at work trickled all into the home life. Like when I would go home, I didn't want to do anything. Like I would just crash at the end of the day. And then it's like, I know many people may say, ooh, thank God it's Friday. Today is Friday, you know? So it's like, I'm looking forward to Friday because Friday was like my unwinding day, my resting day. But then even though I was away from work, my mindset wasn't, because I would still do work late at night and stuff like that. So it really started to show up in other areas of my life because of the stressful environment that I was at. But then the support that I received from like my close family and friends, they would say to me, look, I haven't talked to you in 2 weeks. You're getting out this house. I don't have no money. That's okay. I got you. Right? So it's like just having that support to be around others, because for me, I know that if I'm feeling some kind of way, I just like to subconsciously isolate and withdraw, you know, because everybody's going through something, right? I don't want to talk to you and like dump how my week is going, you know, and no one really wants to like hear it, but then that's what my spirit was my mind was telling me that. But then people actually wanted to hear how I was doing, like honestly, and find out. So my close friends and family, they will call and check in, you know, so that's why I love the title for our podcast today is to check in, because it really does help to support.
Yeah, I think that that's like really an awesome way to know the difference, because like you said, in your professional space, you didn't really feel that support, but you had a circle of people, you had people that cared enough to say, hey, we're gonna check in on you, like, girl, what you doing by yourself?
Mhm.
And I definitely can say the same thing for me. Like, I have a family, I have friends that really care about how I'm doing, and I'm a person, like, I can't hide it on my face. Sometimes you do try to power through, but when you're really feeling the heaviness and the weight of stress, or when you're feeling the weight of anxiety, or anything that you're going through that's kind of heavy, the people that know you and care about you the most, they know something's wrong. And I'm just grateful for the people in my life that, they can feel even the shift of energy that can say, let me check on her, or let me, make sure she's okay, or let me, make sure that I can speak and encourage her in this season. So, yeah, I definitely can agree that those social circles and those people those loved ones that check in, just like we're doing today,
Right.
check in, can make the difference. Like, it
A
really
huge
can make the
difference.
difference.
And just like how he was mentioning, just having that supportive circle, and oftentimes we feel like we need like this big group of people to have support, but it can just be 2, 3, 1 person, and like how you mentioned, I love how you said that, like, the ones that really know you, they will know if something has shifted, whether in a good way or a bad way. So just reaching out, and that's something that I do. Like, if I feel like, I haven't talked to this person in a while, let me just check in on them to see if everything's okay. And then even if they may not respond right away, I'm like, okay, should I call them or should I just wait a little bit? And oftentimes they start to open up like, hey, I'm so glad you checked in because X, Y, and Z is happening. So thank God for our support.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think, that is, super awesome to have that support. What do you feel like, is how you comfort yourself in times of stress? I know that I talked a little bit about like just decompressing, but what are some things that like we use as comfort, I think, for stress?
Okay, and since we are talking about, checking in, and I will be, honest, the way that I did to comfort me, this was a few years ago, I would drink a lot. And then I would surround myself with people that didn't have the best interest in me. And then once I started like praying and really get into my word, I didn't drink, as much anymore. And then I started to continue spending time with those people because they didn't have my best interest. I wasn't a party person. I'm not big on partying, but I would drink a lot, like by myself too, just to get through that week. But then I realized, I said, no, God was showing me another way than doing that. So then I started journaling. That would be my comfort, like really getting into it. At first I was like, why am I writing my thoughts? I can just call my friend. Like, why am I writing this? But then that person may not have been available, so I started really journaling and praying and meditating. So that really helped me to find my comfort when it came to stress and reducing stress. So my journaling really helped, and that was the benefit of it, to help me reduce my stress and anxiety.
And I love that you shared that testimony, because I think that is just so important for people to know that there are negative ways to cope, and those ways, when we think about coping, when people say coping mechanisms, we always think about the positive ones, but people are coping in other ways, and it comes out, like we always know that what goes in must come out, but we don't know how it's gonna come out. So it's just important that, that we highlight that there's negative ways that people cope, but we can shift and we can change to a positive way of coping and dealing with our stress.
Right.
I see that we do have a question in the chat. How can you pick yourself up when you don't have others who extend that check-in that you might need? Ooh,
That's a good question.
that is a good question.
Mm-hmm.
I think, when it comes down to kind of picking yourself up, the same thing that kind of I've shared is a lot of times I use decompression to center myself and ground myself. And sometimes, I'm not going to isolate for long, but I do need that isolation. Sometimes I'm like, leave me alone. I just need to be left alone. Just for a moment. I'm not going to be gone for long, but sometimes I just need the space so that I can just talk to God and have clarity. Sometimes I need the opportunity to have the time with myself to maybe put, like you shared, like in your writing, like put some thoughts on paper, so it's not just circling in my own mind. Sometimes we do need that time to ourselves to recenter and ground, but I think that it's hard when you don't have that support system. Sometimes you still need that extra push, that motivation to actually do the right thing to manage your stress. But those are some of the things that I know for me. What about you? Like, what do you feel like could be a way that a person could manage their stress or deal with some of the issues that they're dealing with when they don't have a person to check in on them?
Yeah, that's a great question. A way to manage your stress, and I'll just share how I manage my stress, because sometimes the people that you talk to, they may not be in a space to relate to what you're going through. So, and depending on their response, I'm like, okay, maybe I need to talk to you about this topic. So I would, manage my stress by going for a walk, drinking more water, eating healthier foods. Those are ways that I manage my stress. And then also, in the middle of the day, like, I'll walk away from my desk. I sit at a desk all day and I'm like, oh, this is tiring. So I may walk away from my desk for like maybe 15 minutes and just putting some strategies in place so that way I can become aware, like, okay, this is how I can manage my stress. And also I prioritize rest. So I prioritize sleep. When I was younger, not that much younger, but I'll say, I'm on the grind, I'm on the hustle, I don't need to rest. That's right, like I didn't need to do any of that, but I'm just like, child, I can't do that anymore. So I would, get like 4 or 5 hours of sleep and then get up and go to work again and be at work by 7:30 in the morning. And I was like, I can't do that. So for me to manage my stress, like I have to be well rested. And I'm seeing the difference of how I operate throughout my day. Like I used to operate on E for like months, even years. I used to operate on E and just keep going without knowing the strategies of how to manage stress. So now it's like, okay, I know how to manage it. It is something that is ongoing. It's not just like a one-time thing.
I love that. I love that you mentioned like some really like healthy habits, because sometimes it's not even just the what we do in the moment, but it's the habits that we form that can continue to help us to establish like a good relationship with stress, because there's bad stress and there's good stress, right? Like, so good stress could be like, you got that test that you're studying for, and sometimes the good stress can actually help you remember the information that you need for the test. But bad stress is what we allow to continue to prolong in our body and let ruminate in our mind. And the things that we can do to cope with bad stress, especially if it's ongoing, is having those healthy habits. Like, sometimes it's like you're stressed about what's going on at work, but maybe you need a nap. Maybe you just need a nap, okay? Maybe you just need a good meal, and you might have just eaten too many snacks. Maybe you need a good meal and you need a nap, and let that be what it is. Maybe you need a good walk.
Yes.
Because that, for me, I love to walk. I love to just I will take off in a second.
Yes.
If I need to just think and clear my mind, I will go for a walk, and it helps me to just get my mind back on track. It's something like I don't need to listen to music. I just am just walking. And it's something about the cadence and the pace that I'm walking that calms me and that soothes me as well. So those are some like excellent ways. I love that you shared that, because I didn't even think about that. Like I didn't even think that that's something that I do, but I really do that.
Yeah.
I love to walk when I'm feeling the weight and the stress or heaviness, just so that I can, feel a little bit freer in my mind. So. Yeah, those are some excellent ways how we can manage.
And since we're on the topic of managing stress, like when you're juggling multiple things, like how do you manage your stress?
I think when I'm Juggling, well, let me tell you something. Brianne Martin is gonna juggle, okay? For most of my 20s, I've had probably 3 or 4 jobs at once. So I have learned the art of juggle, but it doesn't make it easier. And so I think that for me, it has been, truthfully, my faith. Prayer has centered me and allowed me to feel a level of peace that I can't even understand when in times I should be stressed out over my, all the things that I have to get done. But prayer really has helped me power through some of those really hard seasons. When I am juggling and trying to manage a large workload or just things in life, because life happens, right? Things that come up, things that pop up that we don't expect, and when we're juggling those things, I definitely try to make sure that I get myself kind of in order. I try to utilize a strong organizational system for my time. Time management for me is essential because if I don't manage my time, I will be in trouble. So I think sometimes, and I love how even some of these practical and tangible things, like you think, okay, like stress, again, what we want to do is alleviate it in the moment, but it's what we do over time that can help to alleviate stress. And how we steward our time and how we steward the things in our life can also help us relieve our stress. Because sometimes it's not that, oh my gosh, this bill, I'm so stressed about this bill. Okay, pay it. Okay, just go ahead and pay it,
Right.
Just go ahead and steward, that area well, or try to do more to steward that space well. Because sometimes the things that we're prolonging or procrastinating on are, we're trying to find a workaway around it. It's most likely that if you just took the time to steward it in a way that is effective, we wouldn't stress out about it. So I think that has been like helpful for me in juggling and balancing, is like actually making an effort to steward those areas.
And I love how you just mentioned that as far as like when it comes to time management and prioritizing your time and organizing it on what are the essentials to steward, because I think that's really important, and that's a work in progress for me, because as you mentioned earlier, like we may go through stressors daily. Some of them may be good stress, like you said, studying for an exam, and you're trying to finish college, for example, or just a task. And sometimes having that good stress to help motivate us can be good, but then also when it comes to like those negative stresses, because I know for me, it's like I used to look at things at like a time deadline. Oh, I didn't finish this within that deadline, and then I would just start to like become very overwhelmed, intense by that. So now it's like, okay, let me prioritize my time. And like you mentioned, as far as if it comes to bills, I'm stressing about my bills. I'm stressing about, my work. I'm stressing about, my family, my friends, things that they may be going through. I'm now taking on their burdens, and now I'm carrying it, and then I'm carrying so much weight. And I'm like, okay, how do I release that and manage that? So definitely having a support system to talk to, and the best support system is God, so being able to just have that moment with Him. I'm really big on my devotion time, so my morning devotion, I have that time with Him, and also in the evening, because like my mind will race the most of everything that I didn't do when it's time for me to go to bed. And then I wake up in the morning, oh shucks, I didn't do X, Y, and Z on my to-do list, because the to-do list is going to keep growing and growing. And I'm like, you know what, I need my peace to grow more, I need my patience to grow more, I need calmness to grow more, not the stress, not the anxiety. So just having that time with God in the morning, and then also in the evening, like having that time with God in the evening time, also to just have that calmness when I'm going to bed.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like, I know we spoke a little bit about what prayer life can do and shift and change in how we manage stress, but I think also one thing that has also helped me, listen, I got the best therapist in the whole wide world. Let me tell you something. I have the best therapist. She has helped me really again set those organizational systems in place in my life. She has allowed me to talk about the things that stress me out. Sometimes we just need the space. Sometimes we just need the opportunity, because sometimes our support system, they're there for us, but they can't always carry the weight that we have, right? And sometimes the professionals, they are the ones that are equipped to handle the weight and the stress that we might be experiencing throughout the day. So I love my therapist. She has been so transformational. And even as you were talking about, like, some of the things that we do stress out about, like family and friends and things like that, and like how to let go of their burdens, because sometimes we take them onto ourselves. I think that it's, you know, my therapist has helped me try to kind of shake that off of me so that I don't internalize the things that are happening around me to the people that I care about and the people that I love. And so therapy has been transformational for me. As I manage my own stress, as I manage the things that life throws at me.
I love that, and I love the fact that you shout out your therapist, okay? Because it is so important. Like, our family, our friends are going to be there, but like as you mentioned, like they may not be able to provide the best practice for us, or I know they love us dearly and they want the best, but their advice may not be practical. So it's always good to talk to somebody outside of the family or close friends just to get that perspective on how to handle certain situations, you know, because as you mentioned, like, we want to implement healthier habits, right? We can't continue doing things that we may have handled stress in the past. What can we do over time to change that? So I really love the fact that you shared that you talked to a therapist. On my journey, I had a life coach, so she really helped me out when it came to managing my stress and other areas of my life that was just like really crashing. So I was like, something is not right, you know? So I was like, I need to talk to somebody, you know, that can provide me some solutions, because I kept running into circles and every time I kept trying to do better, but my life coach really helped me out to just have a different mindset when it comes to things, because, and there is a scripture, I think it's found in like Proverbs 4:23, like the attitude of your mindset, that's when you know that you can really change, you know, because it's easy to say, oh yeah, the beginning of the new year, people always want to work out, right? But then they quit February 1st, right? Why? Because their mindset, they're not as dedicated to it or committed to it. So once you have that mindset that you're going to implement those daily routines and be disciplined on it, I think, like you said, the stressors don't become as overwhelming anymore.
I love that. And I never really understood like the depth of which a life coach like really helps. But that's great that you're just like sharing kind of the support that you receive from your life coach, because I know that there are many different avenues in which we can receive support. And depending on, you know, when we talk about healthcare and health insurance and stuff like that, people might not have the opportunity to see a clinician. So there's other ways of receiving support out there, and that's a great, you know, kind of highlight to say like, hey, you could go see a life coach that can also provide some level of support as you are dealing and coping with stress. So
Absolutely.
yes, awesome. So delving into a little bit about kind of like that work-life balance, when we think about how we prioritize and manage tasks, like what are the things that that cause you a level of stress as we deal with like prioritizing some of those things at work and then from home as well?
Okay. So I know like the challenge that I had when it came to work, like you talked about that workload. I had a really heavy workload, and I didn't have the necessary support to complete the workload, and they always said we always had like meetings, collaborative meetings, but nobody's really collaborating. We're not working as a team, you know, so a lot of those deadlines, and because I was the type of person that would say yes to everything, they was like, oh, Miana, you can do it, you can do it, you're good at writing papers, you're good at doing projects. So all of that just came on me because it was like, oh, I have kids, I have to do X, Y, and Z, and, you know, you're young, you don't have as much priorities. But then I had to learn how to set those boundaries, right? Because I was stressing so much. Like I mentioned earlier, like I would go home drained, exhausted, and crash, and won't even eat dinner, you know? Or I will go to McDonald's after work because I was too tired to like cook anything. But for my work-life balance, I had to learn how to say no. It was hard. It was hard, you know? And they thought I was changing and acting different. I said, no, we are working as a team, so then you need to pull your weight and do what you have to do. And they got upset at first, but then I noticed that like I started to feel relieved. Like there's such an amazing feeling once you feel relieved and just speaking up for yourself and advocating for yourself. So just having those hard, uncomfortable conversations with your colleague or your supervisor, it can be difficult, but then once you talk to them, and it helped me to like relieve that stress.
Yeah, I love that you brought this up, because let's talk about it. Like as a person, when you are young, or like you're just a young professional, right? They throw everything in the kitchen sink at you because they're like, you're not married, you don't have kids, we have all these other priorities. And not to say that those are not important, but there's also just this misconception of single people with no kids don't have anything to do.
Right.
And the truth is, when you go home and you tell little John to take that chicken out the freezer, he can take it out the freezer. When I go home, I gotta take that chicken out the freezer, and I don't know if I took it out. If I didn't take it out in the morning, then I don't know if I'm going to have that chicken for dinner.
Right.
So, there's also a balance of a level of support when you have other people in your life like that, right? But when you are in a space when you're young and you might not have a partner or you don't have children, there's still a lot that you have to carry. There's still a lot that you have to do. And it doesn't help sometimes that people assume that you don't have anything going on.
Right.
But I love that you shared that the way to combat that is, and maybe not the word combat, but the way to resolve that is to establish boundaries with the people around you, to say, hey, I understand that I do have a level of availability here, but this is where I don't have availability. And standing to that and sticking to that is so important, because your time is valuable, and what you do at that time is for you.
Absolutely.
It's if you need that time to decompress, if you need that time to care for you, take it. And I think that is so important.
Right, absolutely. And like you had mentioned, as far as like when it comes to that setting those boundaries, is like letting them know respectfully, like you have a task to do and I have a task to do, and we all have to, work together collaboratively. So once they were able to understand that, it's like, okay, we were able to work together as a team. So that stress level started to decrease, so it is important to stand up for yourself. Even if it is, difficult when they're so used to you saying yes, yes, yes all the time, and then when you're like, okay, I have things to do too, I have responsibilities as well, so, yeah.
Yeah, I think this really does remind me, like this kind of conversation as we're talking about kind of setting boundaries or establishing a place where you can communicate with others. It reminds me of Luke 10 when we talk about Martha and Mary. So Martha and Mary, they invited Jesus over and his disciples over to their home. Now Martha, she was going around, she was making sure everything was cleaned up. She was trying to make sure she was the perfect host. And Mary was sitting at the feet of Jesus, just, listening to his lessons and listening to his teaching. And Martha comes over, she's like, excuse me, isn't she supposed to be helping me get this house together? And, are you gonna tell her to help me? And Jesus was like, Mary was actually doing the right thing. She sat and learned and gleaned from me, and she honored my presence. And I think this story just reminds me so much of how sometimes we can be so consumed with not being in the moment, not being grounded and centered and being present, because we're so worried about carrying the load, or even taking on, like you said, like the burdens of other people, or taking on the responsibilities of other people, that we just miss the moment. Like, have you ever found yourself in a space where you felt like you were not present because you were overperforming or overdoing?
I just want to start off by saying I really loved how you incorporated a biblical story and character into our discussion tonight, and it really just aligns with our conversation. And I have been in a situation where I felt like I was, exhausting myself by doing just multiple tasks at one time, and thinking that I could do it and continue doing that. Like I said, like going to work, and I've used to work 2-3 jobs all the time, and then my spirit's like, man, you're gonna have to sit down. I know you don't want to, but you're gonna have to sit down, So that was 3 years now, and God has provided, So He has always been my source and provided for me financially. So I only have one job, but then going back to the question, it's like I would do so many tasks, and to the point where my body was like, you can't do that anymore. So I took 3 weeks off of medical leave at work. This was like 6 years ago. And then that was my time that I felt like I had that solitude moment with God. I would go walking by water, and I had my life coach. And it really just helped me to shift internally. So it was really transformative. So yeah, it's just having that moment with God, and it just helped me.
Yeah, I love that you shared like that there was that contrast, because not every time are we able to kind of drop everything and just be super grounded. Sometimes it's a season of grounding. And that season for you was that period of time where it's like, let me have this time with God. Let me have this time where I can recenter and refocus. And, while we want to be able to manage and juggle and perform well and do all the things, sometimes it requires us to, because we get, again, it's a term, burnt out, and we get stressed from all the things that we need to do, that we need to step aside and just say, hey, when is the time I'm going to be present in this life? We get this life, and then we prayerfully go on to glory and into eternity with Jesus. But we do get this life to be one with God. And how many times do we just sometimes miss the moment? Because we're trying to do everything for other reasons, right? For validation, for achievement, all of these different things. So I think that's a great way to just share about how we can kind of set that time aside. I would say similarly, I'm the type of person that I like to. I have a tendency to just overdo. Like I'm gonna do it all. If you gonna call me anything, call me this and do it all, okay? Because I'm gonna do it all. But I think that one thing that time and God has taught me is that being present and being in the moment is so incredibly important, because you don't want to look back and say, how much more would I have enjoyed that if I just sat with that space and sat with that moment and been able to be present. Like when you go to a concert and sometimes you see 1 million people holding up the phone, but you have the person sitting right in front of you. Like, this is an opportunity for you to be present and in the moment. Sometimes you miss that because we want to capture, or we want content, we want all the things, right? But that's something that I've told myself that I need, is that, and I have to tell myself it, because sometimes it's just not something I naturally do. I have to say, no, be present here, be grounded here. I know that we do have a question in the chat. When prioritizing things at work and home, what things attribute to your stress? Yeah, I think sometimes it's the combination of both. Like, sometimes I'm thinking about home stuff at work, and sometimes I'm thinking about work stuff at home.
Yeah, yeah,
And
agreed.
it's hard to separate the two. But I think prioritizing things at work means making a to-do list. It means being a little bit more of that organizational piece. It means having, and one thing that one of my supervisors has taught me along the way, right? Because sometimes when we make that to-do list, we make it just like this, and it's this, and it's this page, and it's that, right? And when we do the to-do list, and then we look at it, and then the end of the day comes, and we say, we didn't get through most of the things on this list, and we get discouraged, and we feel like we failed for the day.
Right.
And so one thing she taught me is she says, take a little Post-it note that looks just like this, and this is your to-do list. And if you get more done, then you did what you needed to do. But you prioritize based on, the need when you talk about, deadlines and stuff like that, and what needs my attention immediately, right?
Right.
Being able to assess what tasks or what deliverables or whatever you need to do in that moment. One thing I do is I take the liberty to have the first 15 to 30 minutes of my day just to understand what I'm going to do for the day. Because sometimes if we don't even take that time to center ourselves in the morning to say, well, what do I even have to do today? Then we're still kind of just going through the day without knowing what's been done and what hasn't been done. So the first thing I'd like to do is I'd like to take the time aside to say, what do I actually need to do today? And then I take my little piece of paper and I write it down. Because you're not gonna catch me with a full, long 8 by 11 by 8, 8 by 11 piece of paper with a full to-do list. That's not gonna happen because I know I'm not gonna be able to get it all done. And so it's being realistic with yourself.
Right.
It's setting appropriate expectations for yourself. Because again, you don't want to be discouraged at the end of the day when a lot of the things on your to-do list are not done. But I think the same thing goes for home. If there's things that you need to get done at home, how do we organize our time and set realistic expectations about how we're going to manage that? Sometimes, I can't do the deep clean on this Saturday, but I can get through most of it, right? I can do this chore, this errand, I can get this done, but let me set an expectation because I also know that this is my day off and I want to rest.
Right.
So, setting that expectation and being real with yourself, I think, for me is how I've been able to kind of balance and prioritize how I manage my stress from work and at home.
And I just love all those strategies and examples that you just shared, and if I had my notes, if I had a pen, I'll be taking notes right now because I love that. I am the one of a to-do list and it starts somewhere like this and then it just rolls at the end of the night like this, so it's like, I love the fact that you said you can cut it down, your to-do list and be realistic, and one thing that my life coach had taught me a few years ago was set a tone for yourself, set an intention for how you would like your morning to be, how you like for your day to be, and it's okay to reset. Oftentimes we think about resetting only in a new year, but you can reset when it comes at the end of the week, quarterly, monthly. You can decide when you want to hit that reset button and just, prioritize what's going to work for you. And I know for me, something that I had to change when it came to my mindset was to help reduce my stress and anxiety for work life. I had to turn my computer off, turn my work phone off, and I'm not checking any emails until 9 o'clock the next morning. If you really need to reach me, if it's that urgent, you can reach somebody else, so, because I will be in my bed 10, 11 o'clock at night, still respond to my work email, and I'm not doing that, because once I'm in the bed, I'm in the bed. I'm reading my book, I'm doing my devotion, I'll talk to you in the morning. So again, setting those boundaries is really, really important. And then also I love the examples you share as far as in a home setting, like how can I prioritize, because I struggle with that also, because like, let's say you're working on other things outside of work or in the community, it's like, okay, what needs my immediate attention, and how can I be realistic? And give yourself grace. I had to learn how to do that, because I will be 100% hard on myself every day and like beat myself up if I didn't finish. So I'm learning also, it's okay to give yourself grace as many times as you need to.
Yeah, no, that is something that I think we all kind of need to honor about ourselves, like understanding that we're not going to get it right all the time. We're not always going to be able to balance and manage in the best way all the time. But I think giving ourselves some room and some opportunity to use that to grow and having that grace for ourselves is extremely important. I definitely think that that's something that I could take away as well. And like you said, setting that boundary, because let me tell you, I was also one to try to send that last message so late. I'm like, oh no, you all will hear from me on Monday.
Yeah.
No, it's Friday, it's the end of the workday. I'm going to finish out my day and then I will talk to y'all on Monday. So that is something that I'm still learning to do.
Yeah.
But I'm trying. I'm trying.
And we're all a work in progress, because that's what it is. Like, it's a journey. So it's like we're putting these habits into place, and it's an ongoing practice that we're doing to implement.
Yeah, and so I think when we talk about kind of giving yourself the opportunity to, or just the room to manage your stress, giving yourself grace. When we think about a way that you've effectively handled the pressure or the stress that you've experienced, what are some of the ways, some of the, I guess, positive coping mechanisms that you have used to effectively manage your stress?
I would say for me, the positive ways that I will cope with the stress, that I have coped with stress. I used to work in a very toxic work environment, and everybody would just be so angry. I would say things like, "Good morning." I'll be so cheerful and say, "What's good about it?" You know, I was like, "What? Okay." Like, you woke up on the wrong side of bed. But I used to take on their negative energy, and then I'll be drained throughout the day. And one thing that helped me is, like, I would still say good morning to them. And I would still say, have a great day. And I still say that to this day. And they noticed it. Like, one day, like, I just had, like, a lot to do at work. And I just went straight to my desk. Didn't speak to anyone. Because if I don't speak, then I don't say nothing. That's just the work environment. So my coworker came up to me. She's like, "You good?" "Why?" "Because you didn't say nothing to nobody. You just walked right in." "Okay, but you never speak to me." So the one day I don't do it, you notice, right? So even when you feel like people are not paying attention, they are paying attention to what you're doing. So just sharing some kindness, before, like, when people get, like, smart and have attitudes with me, I would say something real smart and attitude with them back, But now it's like, okay, let me just pause. I really do pause, and I'll say, "Okay, have a great day. Thank you for your comments." And that helped me a lot to manage my stress.
No, I love that, because similarly, now I wouldn't say it was a toxic environment, but there was just, I'm still in this space right now where I'm dealing with an immense amount of stress as it relates to my job, because I had to pivot in the field that I'm in, and I'm working now in recruitment, and something I've never done ever in my life, and I had to learn it from top to bottom, but I had to learn it when everything was happening. So it was very stressful, and I felt the stress and the pressure coming from my coworkers and my supervisors, because they just needed somebody to do it, right? They just needed somebody to work this area. And so it was a lot of pressure, it was a lot of stress, and I sat in that stress for about 2 or 3 months. And I think the biggest shift for me was I started, like, I usually do my prayer in the morning, but I never necessarily, like, prayed about the culture of the workplace that I was in. And when I started to pray about that, like, I started to pray about, like, I just pray that this coworker has a good day, or they wake up with peace on their mind, or they wake up, you know, just feeling less stressed, or because I know that the stress was transferred, it was being projected. So they were feeling stressed, so that they would put pressure on me, and then I was feeling stressed.
Yeah.
So, you know, I understood that it was coming from somewhere, where they were getting heat from their higher ups, I was getting heat from my higher ups. And so as I began to pray, I would pray for each person on our team, and it transformed the mornings that we would have. They went from being really like tense, really high pressure, to being very lighthearted and very very calming. And the crazy thing is, throughout the whole period of time, we would do this like morning meditation. And so we're doing the morning meditation, but like I'm still stressed out. I'm still like, I don't know if we can, you know. But even in that time, I began to realize, let me pray in this moment for how this meeting is going to go, because I don't know what's going to be thrown at me, but all I know is that God hears me and hears when I say, hey, I desire to have a less stressed meeting. He does hear that. And so when I tell you, it has completely transformed the way that my mornings go and the way that the rest of my day has gone. Like, I just feel like a weight has been lifted. And so, you know, sometimes praying directly into that space where we don't realize, like, we're praying for God to relieve the stress, but like maybe like pray to the point of like what is causing that stress.
Right.
Like, you know, I think sometimes we get caught up in, you know, because I could have prayed for a new job. I could have just been like, God, can you just give me a new job? But just praying also for the culture that I had to be in, and praying for my coworkers, the people that were also putting pressure on me. I think that changed some things for me as well. So I think that it definitely was a transformative way for me to manage some of that stress.
And I love how you mentioned that as far as like when it comes to praying for, not just for yourself, but praying for your coworkers, praying for the culture, you know, because oftentimes people are bringing what they're going through at home or outside of the community into work. And like you said, you can feel that tension when you're around that person. So being able to pray right there in the midst of that work environment, I think that's really important and transformative, you know. So like that was actually one of my prayers when I started my new job. I've been there for over 2 years, and I said I pray for the climate. I pray that the climate will be a lot better, which it has for the most part. And I remember one of my coworkers said that, like, how are you so calm and this lady just cussed us out? And I said, you know what, I had to deal with stuff like this on a regular basis for like almost 10 years. So coming here is like, I'm good because God didn't move me out of that situation, but He helped me to refine my character and find that patience and really find, you know, that kindness in that person, because you don't know what they're going through, but what I can do, I can pray for them, you know, so I love that.
I really love that too. Like, I think that is such an important piece of managing stress between prayer and being able to just go to God about the things that make us more stressed and the things that we carry on a day-to-day basis. Let me see if there's any questions, but I did just want to kind of bring us, even in the conversation, a little bit more about prayer. It says in Philippians 4, verse 6 and 7, it says, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your heart and minds in Christ Jesus." This means that as a Christian, the response that we can take to our own personal stress should be going to prayer with requests as well as gratitude. And so when we have that position and we have that, that particular response to our stress, God does respond, and he responds with inexplicable peace. And so I think that how prayer has really shaped and centered us, I think that that has been something that both you and I have shared. Is there anything as it relates to prayer that you felt was important in the middle of that prayer, right? So like when it talks about requests and or supplication and thanksgiving, have you ever felt like you might have been lacking in thanksgiving because we were doing the requests, or you know, how has the prayer shaped the way that you've managed stress on both ends, where you've requested and then you've had some gratitude?
I would say my prayer life definitely increased, but in the beginning, I would just go to God with requests. I would go to God with demands. I would go to God complaining. And because my situation was not changing, right? So then he had to help me to find that gratitude. So now the top of it, I give thanks, you know? I give thanks, I'm thankful, you know, and even if it's like a long week, I'm thankful that I have, you know, this week to get through. So I'm able to find things of gratitude all the time.
I see that we do have a question. Let's see. Just make sure I find it. Okay. What is God developing in me in this season or in this experience? As it relates to my mental wellness or just dealing with stress, I think God is developing stewardship. Just kind of what I've shared before, developing stewardship in me so that I can rest. That was the thing that, you know, I always have a word of the year, and I pray on New Year's Eve, and usually I get the word a little bit beforehand, but when I was praying this year, stewardship I knew was a word, but then God said, so that you can rest, so that you can have peace. Because if you don't steward areas of your life, it's just gonna go into a place of chaos, and that's gonna cause more stress. And so God is showing me in this season that stewardship is important for me so that I can live a more freer life, and so that I don't have to deal with the weight of the things that were kind of just running rampant, because I didn't have organizational systems in place, or because I didn't honor my time or set boundaries. So I think that's definitely what God is developing in me in this season, to be able to manage stress.
Yeah, and in this season that I'm in, God is helping me to also manage stress, but also just having gratitude. You know, if things didn't turn out the way you wanted to, God, I'm still going to praise you. I'm still going to thank you, you know, and just being able to praise my way through regardless of what it may look like, just finding that joy, you know, in the midst, like you mentioned, in the midst of chaos, in the midst of like a loudness. Oftentimes when people are stressed, they show it by being very, you know, loud, and oftentimes God is very gentle, and he may want us to just, you know, like you said, find that rest, find that joy and peace that comes with him, and that has helped me to manage my stress in my season, because we're going to continue to have stressful moments, but what can we do so that way it doesn't carry it for the entire week or carry into, you know, the rest of the year type of thing, because oftentimes we do carry that weight, and it's stagnant, it just keeps there, it doesn't, you know, we're not able to release it. So the strategies that we shared tonight can definitely help us to relieve that.
Absolutely, absolutely. I love that you mentioned gratitude and being able to rest in the things that he's already given us. He's already, you know, said that we have access to, like, peace and joy and his love. And so that is just an awesome way. I think we're getting ready to wrap up, but we would love to hear from you. If you are on the chat, We want to hear some of your comments. Drop in the chat some of the key points that you really took from this conversation. Hopefully you heard some really great resources in which we can manage our stress better. I know I'm going to take away a lot just from our conversation, and I'm going to be able to reflect on some of the things that we've shared and some of the things that we have been able to talk about as it relates to managing our stress. And just grateful for this space and this opportunity to talk about this kind of topic.
Right, and I'm really grateful also that we had this opportunity tonight. And with it being Mental Health Awareness Month, definitely continue to check in with yourself, listen to your body, honor your body, drink that water, eat healthy, go for those walks. So we mentioned so many great strategies tonight. And also meet us in person on next Saturday, May 30th. Check our page for more information, but it will be next Saturday. We're going to have a self-care day.
Yes, and for our next check-in, so we will be doing another check-in. So I believe it will be on the Wednesday, the following Wednesday. So for our check-in, so we will be here again doing having more conversation. We're actually going to talk a little bit about what it looks like to, we talked about ourselves, but we didn't talk about necessarily managing as a community, managing interpersonal relationships and things like that. So we're going to be diving deeper into what dealing with mental wellness and mental health as it relates to our relationships. So we look forward to meeting back here again, and we're excited. We are excited, and again, it is Pentecost this Sunday. Feel free to join us on Sunday for church. We are here at 10 a.m. And we're excited to see you come and join us for worship on Sunday. And we are excited again to kick off this. Well, we're all the way through Mental Health Month, but we're still excited to kick off some of our activities that we have for Mental Health Month. So thank you again for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you.
Yes, thank you.